The comments and views expressed on The Moore Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The Moore Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from Amsterdam and across the world online. You're now watching The Moore Show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. Now, on today's show, I'm about to be joined with my guest, Dr. Daniel Bird. Now, Dr. Bird's new book, Waking Up in the Spiritual Age with an Angel as Your Guide, discusses a major spiritual shift which is occurring in the world right now, and more people are experiencing unexpected phenomena in their daily lives. From unusual signs, intuitive thoughts, or a smell of a perfume that triggers a strong memory. Most often these are tossed aside as coincidences and immediately forgotten. But what if there were no coincidences and everything happens for a reason? Well, to discuss this and much more, Dr. Daniel Bird, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for asking me to be on. I appreciate it.
No, it's always my pleasure. Do you know, I'm so grateful. I'm so lucky. I'm so blessed, in a sense, to have all these great people like yourselves coming on all the time. It was just recently that I've, realized that not everyone that's spiritual, that's had an awakened process, gets this type of normalness, as I might call it, in their life. They must struggle to connect with some spiritual people sometimes.
Absolutely true. And you are in a unique position because of your program and your website and the things you do to get information that's cutting edge, that people are just becoming aware of, and you're able to disseminate that out to the world. So you're in a really unique, enviable position that many of us really would love to be in ourselves. So thank you for the service that you're doing.
No, well, thank you for the information to bring it on as well. Yeah, it's a funny old thing. Transparency is a big part of this new age as well. I've learnt that the hard way, and also I've started doing daily vlogs now, and I've noticed that actually what I wasn't doing was being that as transparent as I thought I was, but I've learnt that from this show as well. Not just the vlogs. This show, I think, if we were just transparent about ourselves a bit more, that's a sign of being that you've awoken, I would say.
Well, I think that's true, and so many people, because of the fear that's throughout the world in these days, so many people will kind of block themselves off. They'll lock themselves away and not be transparent, not be who they truly are. And of course, many people don't understand who they really are. And that's what, for example, my book is about, just awakening and finding out who you truly are. And as we go into that, it'll make more sense, I think. But yeah, you're exactly right.
I think you're right there as well. I really want to get into your backstory as well. Waking Up in this Spiritual Age. What a great title. So, what got you interested in spirituality, metaphysics? What was your awakening process? And who were you before? So 3 questions there.
Which lifetime do you want to go back to? Let's stay with this lifetime, I think. Great questions. I guess the thing that happened with me is when I was younger, around age 20, it's that time of life when you're not sure where you're going, what you're going to become, where will you end up. And somehow a book was put into my hand, and it was an old book by an author named Harold Sherman, and it was called Your Mysterious Power of ESP, which sounds like some kind of hack book or something goofy. But I read it, and as I read it, more and more of it went into the spiritual aspects and a way to relate to the Creator or God or whatever you would call him or her. And it just opened up all kinds of doors for me. Now, that was some time back. And that book has always kind of kept with me, and I still have it all these years later. But that's what started it. And then I went into other things since then. One of the things I'd like to back up and go into just a little bit is I have a little bit different background than many of those around me that I know. For example, as a small child, I was raised by, my mother was Catholic. My father was, I don't think, really had a religion, but she was raised Catholic, went to Catholic schools and so on. And as a small child, we lived in a town in the state of Iowa that had no Catholic church. So from age, really, from birth until about 9, I was not, we didn't go to church. I really had none of that religious upbringing. And then we moved to a small town in Nebraska, and it did have a Catholic church. It was my mom's hometown, and we did go to a Catholic school and church and all this, but I had missed the complete 8 or 9 years of indoctrination by an established religion. Now, nothing against that religion, but it made me look at things differently than if I had attended Mass, for example, every day, every week, whatever, for all of those years. So at that time, I looked at things differently, and questions popped in my head that were never answered very fully. For example, why does that priest up there, why does he have a direct line to God? Why is he able to take me into confession? I can tell him what I've done wrong, and he can forgive me. What gives him that connection that I don't have? And that was a big question I had, and we were told in our, in our schools and so on, don't question that, just go with faith. So faith is the word meaning don't ask questions, just do what we say. So that led me to question things and look at them differently. And as I became older, I realized that was a blessing because it allowed me to think and look at things differently. So that was the first part, I think. And then, like I said, that book that I read. And then after that, I did several things. I played in touring rock and roll bands for 12 years. I became a teacher, became an administrator, received my doctorate in education, retired from that just recently on early retirement, and went back to music, which I'm doing now full time. But in that course of all of that thing, the spiritual side was always sort of there. And about 3 or 4 years ago, a good friend of mine who knew that I'd had some interest in it, but I just didn't know people around me that had interest as well in all of the things that are happening in the world, the esoteric side, said to me, there's a meeting of a group who will get together and talk about spiritual topics. You should go. And I did, in fact, go, and I listened to all these people, and for the very first time, I found a group of people who had these same thoughts, feelings, and so on. And as I left at the end of the hour, I felt literally like I was walking on air, 2 feet above. For the first time in my life, I'd found a group of people who knew there was more to life than what we're kind of led to believe in our mainstream and so on. So that's kind of the start that got me going. I should let you get a word in or two.
No. It's fascinating. Listen to you. It's not just fascinating for you to keep the conversation going so that we stretch out this interview. It's fascinating to hear your story. Okay, what really solidified then the truth for you that there is more to this reality than what we visually see with our eyes, we sense with our ears, and everything else. What was that aha moment for you, though?
I think I've known that since I was a child, actually. And that's one thing about the book. There's the theme of this book is that not everybody has those big, huge aha moments, or you look over and you see a spirit floating around, or you hear voices out of nowhere. Those things don't happen to everybody. In fact, I think they happened more than we realize. But big aha moments has been building for me. And it's like the awakening part. The title of the book is Waking Up in the Spiritual Age. The awakening part to me is for most people, a process. And I've had several of them. Like I said, going to that meeting was certainly one, the first meeting I attended. Walking out, just literally felt like I was walking on air. The energy in that room was so incredible. I'd never felt that before. That was a big one. Hearing other people's stories, which are so similar to things I had felt or gone through, that made a big difference. And then there's lots of little signs that happen, and there's an entire chapter on that. Little things that happen around you day to day that we normally blow off. We don't pay any attention to. And suddenly we look at it a little different eyes when you start to awaken. You see that some little incident that happened might be a little more to it than just, that picture fell off the wall. Why that picture? Why do those 3 around it did not fall? Those kind of things, you start looking at it a little bit differently, just in case. Now, there are coincidences. There are things that happen that are not, some kind of connection to the spiritual realm. But sometimes they are. So those kind of things came into play. I started keeping my eyes on things. But really, to answer your question in a more precise way, I went to see a psychic medium, the first one, and had a reading. And I went in expecting to sit down for 20 minutes. It was 3 hours. And I walked out of there. I could not believe what she knew, what she understood, and what she felt. And one of the things she told me said, you need to keep a journal. We were talking earlier, and you mentioned about keeping information, writing it down, and all of that.
Yes.
So I'm a good typist. So I started keeping an online journal just for myself. No one has access but myself. And at first, I just kind of let things come through, and I would just type and paid little attention to them. But as I was going, after a little while, they started coming faster and faster. I started typing things and just letting them go. And then I found I had to go back and read them later because I had no idea what I had typed. So that, spiritual writing,
and
whatever they call that.
Yeah. Now, the creative writing, was that a contribution, any of that material, towards the book?
The book is based on ideas from it, but I specifically did not put anything into the book that came from that writing. The book was consciously written by me, but all the information, both from the creative writing and from my book, all come from the same source. They come from somewhere. So I think I quoted in here, there's one passage that I quoted that was taken directly from the journal. But that journal in a year grew to be about 300,000 words.
Wow.
It was coming that fast.
Wow.
And I found out I could ask questions and I would get answers. And so there's your big aha moment for me.
Oh, there you go.
And I started sharing.
There you go, yeah.
Some of those things I shared with close people of mine, and after I had sent a few of them to them, they started saying, you need to really write a book. You need to do something. And I really looked into it and thought about it. And what kept coming back to me is you need to write a book for those people just at the very beginning of an awakening spiritual process. There isn't a lot out there that I could find for those folks. Most of the things you read are people who have had unbelievable happenings, or they're communicating directly with spirits and all those things. And it's just phenomenal. But there's not a lot out there for those folks just having those first signs and those feelings that there's more to it than what I'm feeling.
No, and I think sometimes that when you get these other books, which are, well, on our level very deep, probably when you've crossed over, they were just surface information, but on our level seems very deep. Maybe those that have brought that information through wanted that deepness for themselves, and if it helps others, which is a natural byproduct of it anyway, then they will resonate to that book. And it's almost like your book then. Do you think, where were you in that book? It must have been for you as well, that book. Maybe you thought that maybe you were needing this at a deeper level, just to clarify your thoughts.
That's a very intuitive thought right there, Kevin. That's well said, because I hadn't looked at it that way, but I think you're right. What I had done here was take these so many ideas that it came through, and all the books I've read tons of books by Eckhart Tolle and Dolores Cannon and folks, but I kind of synthesized, simplified it, and put it into this book. And yes, as I wrote it and went through it, painstakingly editing and so on, it became, many of the ideas that I had became even clearer, and they were very good for myself. So you're right. Maybe all authors write for themselves, and then if they're useful or helpful to others, that's just a huge bonus.
Yes. Wow. So you've got the creative writing. Now that's what inspired. Oh, do you know what? I'm getting the words all wrong here. Is it inspired or creative? Automatic writing. Sorry, automatic
Yes.
writing, and that
Yeah.
is the process that Neil Donald Walsh used as well, and many others do. Many others do. Well, I wonder one day what would come off more of that type of writing when you're ready to release that type of writing to a wider audience. Very interesting. What do the family think of what you do? Is your wife very much into these subjects? What do the kids think?
Very, very accepting. My wife has kind of at the same time that I sort of talk about my awakening, which is ongoing, started really the strongest part probably 3 years ago. She was right with me. We discussed this a lot. She felt it too. She was raised Catholic all the way, and she began to see more and more. I don't want to say bad things about Catholic religion. It's not that part. Religion has its place, and it's good for many people. But there are other people who find an alternative approach that works better for them, and that's kind of where she went. So this all made perfect sense. She was one of my biggest supporters. And then other people that are close to me who also very much support it. I have 4 children. They're all grown, and they don't. At first, they probably weren't quite sure. I didn't really talk to them about this that much, but it has come out, and we've talked about it more, and they all have the book, and they all appreciate it, and they all understand it now. It doesn't mean they're out there singing Kumbaya or anything, but it means they're thinking, and all I really want to do is accomplish a lessening of the fears of a spiritual approach in
Yes.
whoever reads it.
Yes. And when you give those copies of your books to your kids, you don't know the ripple effects even if it does to them, especially the lives of those that you've touched that you'll never know. I mean, even in this interview, there'll be people watching this that you'd have said something that I'll never know, you'll never know, but this is how it works. Because you came from the space for this book to be of service. That's the most important thing as well. Or you came from the space that actually this could help people, which is the same thing. It definitely, you can say with being of service, you can say, well, I'm either going to help myself, which is a natural effect of helping others, or I'm going to help others, which is a natural effect of helping myself. There's always that aspect in there with this type of work. Most types of work, it seems to be as well. Like when you were playing in your band, that was still being of service. Yeah, you entertained a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Well, and interesting, we did a show yesterday with a new project I'm involved in, and I'm going into a lot more original music because the automatic writing, the spiritual, the book, all of that stuff is second place in my life. My first love and what I really focus on is music. And when you talk about channeling, books, writing, whatever, I channel music. So I've written, 300 some songs. I released an album with a band I was in before, but I'm doing a solo album which will be coming out in November. And there are several songs that are based on spiritual aspects, even though they'll be folk or rock and roll or whatever. Yeah. And I'll play all the instruments, sing all the parts, and do all that stuff. But that's the part that is really in my heart. The book was kind of a wonderful side way of communicating. But the way you said it was perfect. It's being of service. If somebody reads something, and I've received several emails and communications from people who said, I did not understand this, but the way you explained it in here, it made perfect sense to me. And now I need to read more. Can I get more? Where can I get more? So the part great. You say, and that's your show too, being of service. You're all of the things that you list in the title of your show here are of service. You're sharing information for people who are drawn to it, and that's all I'm trying to do on certainly a lower level.
Absolutely. Well, no, not at a lower level. No, we're all equal. I'm just creating a platform that people can share on, that's all. And it's not my platform, it's for everyone else. And as you are as well, there's things that other earthly things that I'm going to do. I've got a completely different talk show that I'm working on for next year, which is totally opposite to this, but as the young lady that I'm going to be working with on it says, because she's very spiritual as well, yes, it may be different, but we're still going to come from a spiritual aspect with that as well, but it won't be related to. So what I'm saying to you is, I say this a lot on shows, we're here to have an earthly experience. Let's not just put all our feet in the spiritual sense. Let's keep it in the earthly place as well, because that's what we're here to enjoy experiencing and you know, get something out from. I mean, I don't think I joined along Q just to kumbaya all the time. Do you know what I mean? There was more to it than that.
Absolutely, and I think we are here to learn, I think, is the number one thing. You know, you get into reincarnation and the next levels and the levels after that and so on. There's so much out there available, but in my mind, everybody's drawn to different levels of that. You know, some people are drawn definitely to the UFO idea. Some people are drawn to just my parents have passed. I really want to communicate, those kind of things. And some people are just looking at for peace and love right at this level.
That's right.
Every one of those is correct. And just making information available and taking away fear of it is the best we can do, I think. But experiencing life is what you're doing, it's what I'm doing, and it's what we should all do without fear.
I want others to do that as well, and to realize they can manifest the things in their life that they want right now. Well, not right instantaneous, but it don't take long. And
maybe a week.
Yeah. It works. That's all I can say. And, you know, your confirmation was through the automatic writing, really, because you brought through your own truth in the end. And that's really the best thing you can do. And that goes for anyone. It doesn't have to be automatic writing, but just even to go through it, even to meditate per day and just clear your mind, just to be centered. And you may not know, but you're tuning into your higher self just so that you can get those answers you're looking for, or they'll come to you in different ways, but just clearing that space. I think as well, one thing I want to say, I don't want to take up the airtime here too much, is my confirmation has happened in stages, and the biggest one was just this weekend, where all the connections happened with meeting someone. You couldn't have made it up, and it was like, well, okay, yeah, maybe life could have just brought all those together, and it was complete coincidence. But I don't know. This felt bigger, especially when what the psychic told me before I was going to meet the person, and it happened, and everything else. So I guess we've all got our own experiences, but this book will help you to tie some of those together. That's, I guess, my point.
Yeah, it's for me it did help with that, though I felt intuitively everything in the book I already sort of had internalized. But the book, for some reason, my guides, I don't know what else to call them, my higher self, my guides, source, God, whatever, came through with this idea that you need to write a book for people that, like I said, are just beginning to sense something, just looking for something. There's not many books out there along those lines, so that's kind of why I did that one.
No, it's great.
And,
it's great.
And the automatic writing that you talked about that I said was so much, I took chunks of that. They're not in the book, but they're on my website. So if wakinguptospirit.com, there are a lot of essays on the side that are taken directly from that, so they can see the kind of writing. And my wife always says, this is not the way you write in your normal way of writing. I don't know if it's a little more, it's just the wording is different. There are words I don't normally use. And so she said, that's something's definitely coming through. But there are a lot of essays there uncovering things like reincarnation and spirituality and stuff. So it's well worth looking at.
And isn't it incredible that if you compared your work to others, now it's going to say similar or almost the same thing. Now that's not because you've intensely listened to others, because when you're in that mode of creative writing, you're in a different mode anyway. But that's because truth is truth in one sense, and the same message keeps coming through because we never listened in the first place for some of us.
Or we weren't ready.
Or we weren't ready, that's a good point, yeah.
My wife has read several books recently, and she keeps coming to me and says, this is amazing because this is the same information that you put in your book, and they're saying it in very similar ways, sometimes different words. And she said, I know you never saw any of these books before you read it, but it's coming down from so many places. Yeah. That's really true.
I mean, come on, that's confirmation for you, isn't it? I mean, what more do you want, right? But then sometimes when you are in that space of what more do you want, when you're like, oh shit, really is this? then it'll come in different ways. That's what's happened to me. You know, I've been channeling. I stopped the book. I'm going to restart it again now after what's happened to me recently. I lost a bit of faith, and it came back to me in another way, and that's how it works. It's incredible. It really is.
Well, and I have told several friends of mine who, I have one particular friend who really, really wants to go beyond this level and wants to understand big questions and issues. And I finally just said to him, I said, I think there are some things that our human brains at this level cannot comprehend. They just cannot. No. You can think about them and strive for them, but I am more prepared to stay at this level, understand what's going on, and if it comes to me, or for some reasons I get that tingling in the back of my head and I need to pay attention to something, then I'll do it. But there is so many riches that are going on at this level, so much to learn and experience. I'm not going to worry about, well, I won't go into the details, but some of those higher level things myself. He may.
Absolutely agree with you. My book that I'm bringing through is that, only because I want that. I want that higher level stuff. But I so agree with you, because unless what you're bringing through is going to help in the present moment now, it ain't much bloody use. Because, yes, all that wonderful stuff may exist, whatever we personify here may exist, but what about making today better? How much did you love today? How much did you care about someone else? How much are you living in your truth? How transparent were you today? You know, what would love do in the moment now? Just these things to make this, you know, to make now better, because we can't change the world, can we? But we can change ourselves.
I think you're right. It's the what can we focus on at this moment? And then one of the things I talk about in the book is this whole concept of past, present, future, right? We've heard it a million times. It's in a million books, a million videos, but I try to explain that. Don't forget the past. Don't live there. I've known people who absolutely still live back in their school days, or live in their 20s when they're 45 now, and those sort of things. They spend too much time thinking that, so they're missing this. And it's the same for the future. I've known people who put everything, nothing is as important as what's coming up down the road. But then that doesn't help much either, because they'll say to yourself, well, if I get this perfect job, I'm going to be happy. Well, you get that perfect job and you're not happy. If I would get this promotion, then I'll be. No, it doesn't work. If I get this perfect wife, I'll be happy. No, this car, this house, whatever, you know, it's one step after another, and they don't realize what's happening is it's not that you want that stuff. What you're looking for is a fulfillment that only comes, in my mind, through meditation or being quiet and finding your true self. So the future, past, and all that, live in the present. Do not put so much worry and time into the future. Yes, you have to prepare for things, of course. Yes, you can learn from the past, but don't live there. Live now. So that's another one of those things. It's a small but mighty step for people that are sort of awakening to understand.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And could you say, or would you say, that okay, so you just, you know, use the option of meditation to get to that space, to find that amazing bliss that you're talking about. Would there be other steps that may be surrendering to the moment now? So, as Matt Kahn may say, whatever arises, love that. So just in another personification of it, surrender to the moment now. Whatever is, just is. And all this pressure we put on ourselves, as you say, to find a loving partner, you know, loneliness, whatever it may be. I'm just talking about some of my key issues here. But whatever it may be, isn't that a great place to come from? Surrender?
I think you said that beautifully, and I hope I can record it and put in my next book. No, the way you said that was perfectly said. Surrender to the moment. Every moment is an individual moment. Every moment has learning possibilities. Every moment has sharing possibilities. And when I'm out and about, going about my day, when things happen, good or bad, or however they come through, I just look at it that way and just accept it. And, you know, it makes your day go much better when you do it that way. Plus, you realize the richness of life on an everyday moment. You don't have to have an interview on the internet with somebody internationally famous across the ocean to have a wonderful day and moment. But it's a nice highlight, and I enjoy it. So you're right. Each moment is the key.
Yeah, yeah. And to get to that space that you mentioned as well, just keeping on the thread of what you said, do you think that part of what you've said as well, through meditation, it might lead you as well into getting to that space of, well, okay, well, what if I just followed my bliss with both my logical side and my feeling side as well, so your mind and your unconscious side combined, not just one or the other, and go with what is your highest joy, and no matter what that is, go with it, and that may then take you on to something else and something else until you get to what you're really looking for. But is that part of it, do you think?
Oh, 100%. Because though I mentioned meditation, that's more, I hate to say it, I don't meditate very often. And because I meditate when I'm writing music, playing music, there's so many different ways to go into that zone. But absolutely, you don't have to do those kind of things. Everyone has their own way of finding their bliss. But I find that songs I've written, a song I recently wrote is called They Make More Every Day. And it's a song about people who are worried about money. And then the chorus goes into they make more every day. In other words, quit worrying about that. You're just complicating it. And then about just doing everyday things that you do. Well, they make more every day. And then the last verse goes into, I was sleepless in the night, and I thought to myself, why would God love me when I'm so full of sin? That was a couple of the lines in it. And then the chorus comes in, the angels sang, they make more every day. We make more love every day to share. Quit worrying about whether you think you're good enough for God or whoever. So it's the judgment part. Getting rid of that is the big key. And one thing I wanted to mention along those lines too is in all circumstances during the day, each moment that comes up, everybody has a choice to approach it in. You have choices at all time. Some people go through life feeling like they're victims. Some people go through life feeling like they make their own luck and so on. But I have convinced myself that at each moment, good or bad, that comes up, and they're all good or all bad, I don't know. That's judgment right there, I guess. I think you can choose. You can choose to be a victim of what's happening, or you can choose to be a learner. And I thought learner would be the right one, because whatever happens, you can learn from and add to your portfolio of knowledge. So you can be a victim or a learner in the smallest little things, because we're making decisions constantly. I'm making a decision right now. Do I want to get a sip of water, or do I want to wait until I stop talking and not look silly? And I think I'll probably wait. The victim or learner, I think, is good.
No, absolutely. You drink that water. Yeah. Don't worry about doing that. Just do what you've got to do. That's what I said before. Don't care what people think. We so live in the fear of what people think sometimes. I have been doing it, and I'm trying to break it, but it's not a great place to come from. It doesn't help anything. You're not being your true, authentic self then, in a way. And just remember that your true, authentic self is something that wouldn't hurt someone else or yourself. No matter what we do in life, as long as we're not hurting anyone else or ourselves, it's all good. It's all good. Mm-hmm. God, you said so many great things there as well. There was something else I was going to lead on from, but it's kind of left my mind a little bit. I think... Well, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to mention, you said the word fear, which is such a huge fear. Yeah. Such a huge word. I wanted to mention that as kind of an off-topic. We have tonight in the States a big...
I'm watching that, yes.
Yes. And the people of this country, I don't know a single person who is happy about at least one of the candidates, if not both. But anyway, the thing is the fear part of it. It's the fear-mongering. Through history, we've seen how so many societies and even churches and groups have used fear to control people. And the use of fear over here right now with this presidential thing is so out of control. So many of us are just shaking our heads going, what does the world think of this? This is not us. This is not our people here. I mean, there are some involved in it. Of course, they have enough support that they're up there running for president. But the fear factor is the key part for all of that. And once you understand fear, I think it allows you to kind of step back and look at it differently. And fear in small ways and fear in large ways. And you can see fear in commercials on television. You can see fear in advertisements in the newspaper. You can hear fear in just average people talking. And that is so strong right now. But that leads to my theory that what's happening in the world with this, I think there's a huge awakening going on in the entire world. And I'm part of it. You're part of it. All of us who are sort of moving in that direction feel it. But that awakening has scared those who have not had those first steps. And I feel like there's this big chasm between the folks that are kind of awakening and moving forward and thinking in positive terms, and the folks that are pushing the fear and fighting and wars so strongly. I think they're seeing their grip on control is slipping a little, and so the other side is getting stronger. And I just pray that we continue with the positive aspects, and eventually fear will sort of fade away. I didn't mean to go into politics. But
No. I think it's a really important point. I think actually the two contenders are basically two of the most unpopular presidential electors that are there right now, which is incredible. And a lot of my friends have been watching the American race because it's just so interesting. I don't think there's ever been one quite like it. But it does go to show the psyche on a bigger global scale as well. Otherwise, this would not be happening. There's, as I've said in previous interviews, Trump has allowed the race car to be seen in the light. He's shone a light on this, even though he may be the reaction to what's going on over there right now. Karmically, maybe there's a bigger reason for him being there right now. There's a lot to heal. I'm surprised in America just how unhealed it is. I thought, I've been to America many times. I love America, but I never knew that there was all that fear and hate there, and that there's a lot that needs to be healed there. And I guess that's maybe what's happening. Do you know that? I guess that's what's happening.
That's a very good thought, too, that when someone rises and they rise and it seems like a negative, you have to look at the other side of it. They may be alerting to the country and alerting people who are kind of outside the issue to look at it differently and go, wow, this is really not good. There are a lot of people that follow this person. I did not know they were there. But that may be the first step toward a healing. So, yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's not just negative. Sometimes it serves a very good purpose.
Absolutely. Karmically, on a level that we are not able to see, until we see the bigger picture or until we've crossed over sometimes. They're playing a role. They definitely are. And I think what's a really important part of what you mentioned with fear is that as you were talking about people's decisions that they make, a lot of times when people make bad decisions is when they actually come from fear and make that decision from fear.
Exactly. And that's kind of the knee-jerk reaction that we get so often. And the thing about fear, too, is if you use fear correctly and in a controlling way, you allow people to not have to think for themselves. That's what I'm seeing going on with the folks that will follow Trump, for example. They don't want to really look at the issues themselves clearly. They want to be told the answer. And I don't mean just him. It can be anybody. It can be churches. It can be businesses, anything.
Yeah.
But the use of fear allows you to not think about it and make true judgments for yourself. And I'm not picking on religions, but I know some people who have Bibles and they quote their Bibles on everything, and they will not be reasonable about anything. They will not look at any other possible scenario or approach. I had a man and his wife approach my door a few days ago, and they wanted to talk about it. And he said, "Do you know where you're going when you die?" I said, "No, I believe I know where I'm going, but I'm not." "You mean like heaven and hell?" He goes, "Yes, of course. Do you know?" And I said, "No, because I don't believe there's a hell. I believe I'm going to the next level, and I'll go from there." And he says, "I know where I'm going." And I go, well, where are you going? He goes, I'm going to heaven. I know for a fact. And, those kind of things. And I just talked to him about it. And I said, by the way, I wrote this book. You should have a copy. Oh, no. No. He says, you realize that I'm being influenced by Satan and all that stuff by writing my book. So, but that kind of fear and closed-mindedness is what is so bothersome to me.
But what if that soul that came to your front door chose to have that life in the church to experience restriction? And what other way are they going to experience it by having that incarnation? So that soul really at a deeper level is just as enlightened as we all are, but that's what it's chose. I do believe that there is free will, that even though souls choose particular paths, it's, okay, am I going to murder this person? Yes, it's, I knew that this point was going to come because karmically that's what we agreed to come together. But do I come from hate or do I come from love? I still got the free will.
And that's something you really have to think about.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe we're locked in to doing those things. I think free will still overrule what we've agreed upon. It happened in my own family, and some things I'm just convinced that, we can still choose. Now, it may not fulfill our karmic debt. I don't know. That's determined in between our lives, but yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And, bringing this back to your book as well, one of the chapters I found was interesting was you're drawn to certain things. And we were just kind of mentioning, free will there. What is that chapter about as well?
Well, you're drawn to certain things. What is it that makes one person like a certain kind of, the obvious ones, like a certain kind of art? Or why do you like a certain music? Why are you drawn to this kind of a person's personality? There are some things that don't seem to make any sense, and yet we feel ourselves drawn to them. And that's in everything in your everyday life. And some of that, I think, is from interest or leftovers from past lives. I truly believe in reincarnation, in that. Why do I, for example, when I was about, I want to say, 8 or 9 or 10 years old, why did I write or read books about whaling vessels, Moby Dick and those kinds of, and read a lot of them? Why? I'm in the very middle of this country, that's far away from oceans and big seas as you can get. We have farms out here. And so why was I interested? And the only thing I could come up with later on when I understood a little more about spirituality is I'm simply going to a time in my past that was a very important one for me. So I figure at some time I was on those kind of boats and those ships. Otherwise, why did I know so much about it? Why did I go both to the East Coast and the West Coast just to see these ships when I grew up in a farm community? So things like that you can't explain, that feel familiar, that draw you in. Parts of the country are that way, or the parts of the world are that way. That's what I meant by those kind of things.
Right. Okay. I completely agree with you that there are some aspects of us that we bring into this life from past lives that haven't been healed, and we're very hard on ourselves sometimes with these. Aspects that we don't enjoy, these tapes that play in the background. And, it'd be nice to think that we can just switch them off and heal them, transform them, so that they don't affect us anymore. But it's not always that straightforward. It's almost a lifetime's work sometimes with these tapes that we're playing. Some of them.
That's exactly true.
Because we don't want to deal with it, do we? We think, oh well, it'll get better, or one day I'll sort it out. And it's only when we get to our latter part of our life, really, as well, that we think, shit, it's not sorting out, is it? It's still with me, and I've left it to this. Or maybe I need to just address it somehow.
Boy, that's very wise. You're a younger man, and you've got some very clear thought out, some understandings. I don't know that you're there, but you certainly understand some of these, the way they work. And yeah, it's easy to go through life and be drawn to something and shut it off, and drawn to it and shut it off and stay away from it. And yet know there's something there that is vital and important. And so many people wait too late. And who was it that said the great statement, don't die with your song unsung?
Oh, yeah, who was that? Wayne Dyer. Wayne Dyer.
Wayne Dyer. He said that, and he died just a little over a year ago, I think it was.
Yes.
And but that, not only as a musician is that important, but I think the statement he made is just so vital. How many people do we know have worked their whole lives somewhere only to look for retirement? They go into retirement, and then a year later, 2 years later, all their purpose in life is gone suddenly because they didn't have those other things, and they fall over of a heart attack. It's just too common.
Well, that leads into another great chapter of your book. Then, okay, we've kind of touched upon this about going with your joy. Some people will say, yes, but I've got to go where the money is, because that's the job. But I'm fighting against that now. I'm like, you know what? Actually, you don't have to. That's what's been programmed into our parents and programmed into the system to us, only because it's not. I don't think there's a kind of big brother trying to do, I just think that's just the way we work. I might be wrong, but anyway, but we can change that, and actually that comes down to, for example, that person who gets to that age and realize they weren't living their purpose, or they didn't know what their purpose was, and it must be quite a bit of a lonely thing then to figure, to then not be able to see any greater reality, or that, their life is of such purpose. That's a great thing as well, that actually for us just to be here and to show up, that means we have the right to be here. We had the universe wanted us to be here. No matter how low you feel that my life's pointless, actually it's so on cue that you're here, that's how amazing that you are, that you were meant to be here. So try to just pick yourself up when you feel that way sometimes. But just going back to what you're saying as well, that comes into one of your chapters of Who Are We Really? And I thought that was a great title as well. So who are we really then, in that sense? And how can that help someone that may be going through a challenging time of, well, what is my purpose if I've not been living it?
Well, that's a good question, and that, again, remember, the book is aimed for those people who have not read a ton of books by Wayne Dyer or Dolores Cannon or anyone, those folks who are not been introduced to this stuff. So some of the ideas, there's nothing new here. It's all been out there before, but it's sort of like my guides. I felt like they wanted me to put these certain things in there. So who are we really? Well, we introduced the idea of we are spiritual beings in the physical body that Wayne talked about all the time. We are here temporarily. We are here to learn. We are actually God's eyes in this part of the universe. We have so many things going on along those terms as opposed to our physical existence. Yes, we know we're here to go through life and go through these things, but that isn't the end of it. That's just a tiny part of the physical part of it's very tiny. And I know we're at over 51 minutes now.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You're good, you are. You've got your timer on. No, it's okay. I don't mind just going over a little bit here, because this is really fascinating, actually. What do you mean as well by, in the book, when you talk about, because obviously when people read this book, they might also come across this recording, and it just help them just to understand the chapters a bit, but by allowing yourself to go as well.
Letting yourself go means, find what it is that ticks with you. What is it that makes you feel right? What makes you feel fulfilled?
As we talked about.
At my age, I retired from my regular job exactly 2 years ago, and I found that my true bliss is now totally available for me. Everything in the spiritual realm, the writing of the books, that was something I had never wanted to or thought about doing. Not that I didn't want to do it. It wasn't part of it. The music in particular, after a 20-year absence from playing music, I'm back into it and busier and happier and more fulfilled than I've been in years. My family is healthy and all that, so that all makes a difference too. But by letting yourself go, find what it is that's pulling you and quit fighting it. Find what it is. And I know it's easier to say than it is to do. But every one of us has that opportunity to find those things that vibrate with us.
Yeah. And, you may be doing them, and sometimes you'll say, is this really what I want to do? I have that all the time. Is this really what am I really fulfilled in what I'm doing? And I think, that's a big part of it, when you can actually be, just really in tune with what you're doing and fulfilled as well. That's important, but it is a process. It's not a straight road, and I think
Yes.
so I'm beating myself up here, and I want others to recognize that as well in themselves, that actually it doesn't always happen straight away. It's a process. Yeah.
And if everything is timed as it's supposed to be, then you never feel frustrated with it happening later or whatever. And this is an important thing I wanted to mention before we ran out of time, is like you said, life is not a straight line. I don't know if you can see my hand, but I truly believe life goes like this. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up. It's a wave that continually goes up and down. And you'll have those moments of clarity and this is it, I'm feeling great. But then something will happen that'll kind of bring you back down again, and then you'll go back up. And if you understand that and can flow with that, you're able to pull the energies in when you hit those lower peaks that will lift you right back up. Or a messenger or a person or somebody will come along and they'll say just the right thing and say, yes, I'm back, and you come back up. And so that just goes on all the time. And if people think it's a straight shot or that they can just go up like this and everything's going to be wonderful, they will be frustrated. It's the up and down, the curve.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for again sharing that, because I think that's so important. And also, you've got to take some risks sometimes. I'm not talking about taking stupid risks. Referring to is, you may be scared of something you've got to do. You may be, I think that's really the main part. You may be scared of it. And actually, beyond that fear is some amazing doors that will open for you. And it's almost like sometimes, we don't love ourselves enough to want to walk through that doors or see how great we are. Again, that's another process of rebuilding yourself to get to a better point where you can see how amazing you are. But okay, well, this really wraps up into an important point here to sort of get near the end here, is that how do we know we're going through an awakening process? How do I know I'm awaking up, in a sense?
A great deal of this book is actually on that exact topic. How do I know? And I have a feeling that those drawn to the book would be drawn there because they're feeling something. And some of the signs might be small things, just all of a sudden. There's an example I give in the book. It's just, I gave an example of somebody who gets up to go to work in the morning, and they're having their breakfast, and I don't know, something comes up in like I said earlier, one picture falls off the wall, and you go over and you pick that up and you look at, well, this is a picture of my mother who died a few years ago. Well, okay, why did that fall out, but the other ones didn't? You go get in the car to drive to work, and you turn on a radio station, and a song comes on that your mother sang to you when you were young. And so you still aren't thinking there's any connection, but you go, that's I haven't heard that song in 10 years, and she loved that song. Okay, so you drop that, you go to work, you get in the elevator, you're going up to the 4th floor, let's say, and you get in the elevator, and then it stops on the 3rd floor. A lady walks past you that you've never seen before, but you smell Chanel No. 5 perfume. And that was the exact favorite, which in my mother's case is the truth. It was her very favorite. And you hadn't smelled that in years. And you go, wait a second, this is the 3rd thing in a row. And then it starts tying in. Those kind of little things happen to people every day, and we simply call them coincidences. Some of them probably are, but some of them may not be. No. And when you learn to kind of lift your own vibrational level, you start feeling which ones are real and which ones are not.
And I think it can be very painful awakening as well, because you almost want to go back to your former self. Why am I acting like this? Why am I feeling so much? I just want to be the old person that I used to be. Yeah. And, and that feeling could be coming from an abusive partner that you're no longer with, but it's still in your life. It could be a number of things, right?
The connections are there, yes.
Yeah. And you may fight it, and you may go back to your old self. You may even get with someone that's abusive again, but then you kind of learn that actually, you know what? There is something better for me, and that I think that's a part of awakening as well, to really respect yourself, and that there's many ways, isn't there? This is just, an obvious one. Love, relationships, that's a great way of awakening sometimes.
But the abusive, the one you mentioned, abusive relationship, we've known people who will go back to it over and over and over, and that will probably continue until they, I don't know any other way, but until they awaken enough to see what they've done and what they're doing. And then they choose to go a different direction and refuse to allow that. It'll hopefully happen in this life or the next life or whenever. They tell us we don't have to worry about time. That gets into your realm when you get into time going on at the same time, and it's, that's beyond me. I'm a little simpler minded than that. But yeah, the abusive thing, those kind of things will happen over and over until we learn. And that's a key.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, then. What would you say is the most important message of your work?
The most important message of my work, as far as the book is concerned, is to tell people that we are all together, we are all one. These terms you hear all the time, but helping them to understand what that means. That because something happens, it doesn't make you a bad person. Because something happens good, it doesn't mean you're a better person. Avoid judgment. Be open to it is the key, and don't be afraid of it. Just really the simple level. Just open up to this and allow it to happen. You will feel it. You will understand it. So that's the main message that I have.
Excellent. Okay, well, we've been putting your book on throughout the interview on the screen, and again, it's all available from all good bookstores. I believe it is. It's on Amazon and other big platforms as well, Barnes and Nobles for other people. And I'd just like to say, Daniel Bird, thank you so much for joining us today.
Kevin, thank you so much for allowing me to be on something like this. This is it's a wonderful opportunity for me and to get the word out of what I'm trying to do. And I appreciate what you do at the show there, and I will continue to watch. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.com, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.